Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of the NTC podcast. We're greatly excited to be back with everybody after a little bit of a layoff, but the summer is coming to an end. The offseason is winding down, and we are staring down the barrel of another NBA season here real shortly. We're within 40 days now, I believe, of the NBA season opener. So to kind of start the rollout into the new season, I wanted to tackle a few different issues that are still going on as of today, as of this recording in the offseason. One of them is the restricted free agent situation. There were four players, two have signed in the past few weeks, but two guys that are still restricted free agents that are looking to sign new deals. So we're going to get into that this afternoon. But to help me break down all these situations with the restricted free agents is Steven Bagell. He is a longtime guest of the pod, friend of the pod. I've jumped on some of his recordings over there at the center spot and everything they have going on. They're prepping some college basketball previews right now. They did a free agency whole extravaganza back in the summertime, which is a lot of fun. So, Steven, I appreciate you coming on, kind of return the favor a little bit. Help me out on short notice. Definitely wanted to tackle this situation with restricted free agents. But in any case, glad you're on and hope you're doing well, man.
Yeah, Aaron, as always, I appreciate you taking the time for having me. Very interesting. We haven't quite seen a restricted free agency, quite like this. I want to say almost ever. Like, I don't really remember restricted free agency playing itself out the way this one quite has.
Yeah, no, it's definitely unique, at least when it comes to the number of restricted free agents. I don't know if we've ever seen four pretty high-profile guys at the same time struggle to come to a deal with their respective teams. So this is definitely something we haven't really seen, at least in the near future. But with that being said, I wanted to jump into the first situation here, which has been resolved as of, I think, a week or two ago with Josh Giddey and the Bulls. So Giddey was the one I was most confident would sign a new deal. There had been rumors the past few weeks that they were kind of going back and forth. They're hovering somewhere around 20, got to 25. So I think the Bulls, they were cool with getting an extension. They were they had the same idea in their minds. They were just trying to fine tune the details, trying to nail down a specific number. I think Giddey had to get the Bulls to go up a little bit. I want to say like it started at like 80 million over 4 years and it got to 90, settled at 100. And I think he got a pretty good deal here, seeing as though he's a starting point guard, a well-rounded point guard that can rebound, that can lead the break and pass really well. Can score at a decent clip. He can't shoot the ball extremely well, but as far as a point guard that you want to lead the attack and help set up other players, I think he's really good in that role. And the Bulls have him for 4 more years here, getting that deal done. So, for the Bulls, it takes care of that situation at least. The team itself is still in flux. The roster is kind of weird. Not a whole lot of guys that you think are going to be there for the long term. But at least they got this one knocked out. When you look at this deal, Steven, the dollar value can seem a little shocking, but when you look at the percentage of the cap, and I think Bobby Marks tweeted this recently about the percentage, 14 to like 14.9% of the cap during this deal, as I think solid value for a starting guard in the NBA, a player that can drop a triple-double any given game, a point guard that can, has a good amount of size there. So it definitely gives him a buffer when it comes to being on defense, not being such a liability if, like 5'10" or 5'11", 6-foot guys are. So that helps them a lot too. So I'm excited to kind of see where the Bulls go from here. They do have the Kobe White situation to address after this, and he's looking for reportedly over 30 per season for his deal. So that's a whole nother debacle that they're going to have to deal with. But in the short term, I think they got it right with Giddey. Long term, I don't think there's any options with this deal, so it seems pretty solid. But what were your initial impressions or opinions, like when you first saw that the Bulls came to an agreement with Giddey?
So Josh Giddey's an interesting one, mostly because I don't know how many teams signing him for 400 would have made sense for. But for the Chicago Bulls specifically, I think they're one of the teams that, it does make some sense. Given just the Bulls over the past however many years, they just have refused to bottom out, for lack of a better term. And, he's going to raise the floor to an extent. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know, after the All-Star break last year, what he averaged, 21, 9, and 8 or something like that. He was very good during that duration of time after the All-Star break. So, I mean, for a guy who's just going to be, as I said, a floor raiser, like just stabilize the offense without, who knows if he'd actually be starting for a contender. He was starting for a 1 seed last year in OKC. But obviously when they saw he couldn't really play in the playoffs, that's when they traded him for Alex Caruso. So with that, and then they won a championship, of course. So with that said, like, I don't want to say, oh, Giddey can't be, a starting point guard on a playoff team. But, I mean, given the deal, I think for Chicago, it does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement there, man. When it comes to the deal, I agree he's a floor raiser. When you have a point guard like that can stuff the stat sheet any given night and, really just, have at least a statistical impact on the game, I think it's pretty fair to say that, you're going to have a hard time bottoming out, as you said. I don't think they're going to change course anytime soon. When I think of the Bulls and the course they take, it reminds me of like Indiana in terms of the approach, because Indiana does the same thing. Like they don't ever want to bottom out. You rarely see Indiana become any lower than like a 10 or 11 seed in any given season. When we saw what they did in the finals here recently, obviously they've bounced back from that. But the Bulls seem like they're trying to do the same thing. Like they never want to be out of the play-in 12, 13, 14 seed. They never want to do that. The past couple of years, they have like periods of time where they kind of spike, and it's like, wow, this team is really solid, at least offensively. When you have Giddey and you have Kobe White and Vucevic, like you're going to be pretty decent. Like you're not going to be one of those teams that's like a doormat or laughing stock. But at the same time, it's hard to break through the upper echelon of the league, even in the East, with the way they're currently constructed. So I went through and I looked at his numbers after the All-Star break, at least most of the way through. I have here through game 80. So I have 19 games here. He averaged, it looks like 21, 10, and 9, where his averages after All-Star break. So yeah, like really solid stuff, almost a triple-double. So this is a player that I think you could feel comfortable with signing for a long-term deal. He's still young. He still has maybe a little bit upside to tap into. As of today, he's 22. The season starts will be 23, so he still has plenty of great years ahead of him. And with him and the Bulls together, I think it's a pretty good pairing. I actually like him with Kobe White working together on offense. Defense is another story. You're never going to have a top tier defense, or it's going to be very hard to craft one with those two guys together. But at least offensively, with Kobe White, the shot creation, and then Giddey sitting guys up, I like that tandem. They're fun to watch together. Now, time will tell if they end up being together for the long term next few years. But at least for now, it seems pretty good. Do you think that the Bulls will accommodate Kobe White's like requests? I guess I know he's looking for more than Giddey got. How do you compare those two players? Do you think that Kobe White should get more money than Giddey? Do you think he's more valuable due to his shot creation?
If I didn't see the Giddey deal, again, I always anticipated Giddey getting about $25 million. I actually wrote an article about it. The 10 most interesting free agent dilemmas going into this offseason. Giddey was one of them. I think I paid him at about $23 to $24 million a year. So okay. Kobe White, I would say, is probably one, with how the cap's been raising, probably closer to $30 million a year. So with that said, I would say White is a little bit more valuable. I think his game is more adequate for like when the Bulls are ready to compete, in terms of like, okay, Giddey, when they're in the playoffs, like he's just going to be a guy setting guys up, with the lack of the 3-point shot will really affect them. Where Kobe White, I think even if the defense is a little bit more of a struggle, like I don't think Kobe White, due to his defensive deficiencies, will be played off the court, if that makes sense, in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, it does. It does for sure. And when it comes to his value, I think that's where I was headed to, in terms of just the way he can fit onto a team. I think he's a more seamless fit with more types of teams, in terms of like if you want to win games. especially at a high level. Like if you want to be a top 4 seed and you want to compete for a championship, then he makes more sense. He's not going to get played off the court as easily. You can play him in almost any lineup just because he's a high, he's a knockdown shooter. He could get hot. He could definitely create for others a little bit. He's shifty. So yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think if he can get at least upper 20s to 30, I think that's fair. If we're talking about more than that, then it's tricky because you're starting to get into a territory of like a max deal when you're talking about over 30 mil. So that's a tough sell. But I think if he can aim for 28 to 31, somewhere in there per year, I think he's getting a pretty fair market deal, and he's due for one because his last deal was definitely below market. This coming season, he's only going to get 12.8 million. So we're talking MLE type money for a guy that's a clear starter in this league and really proficient scorer. So
I think sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but I think that factors in his next deal. Like, hey, we sort of gave you a discount or a deal we thought we were going to outplay. Him and his agent are going to say. So I think that does matter in this next deal. Like, okay, look, you underpaid us last time. We want to be a little overpaid this time for what that's worth.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. We got to balance things out a little bit. You got a discount. I imagine a similar thing will happen maybe when Brunson is up for his next deal. Since he took a discount, it's like, hey, I'll make it up on the back end. So everything ends up being, pretty reasonable over a 5-year term, even though like maybe the first 2 or 3 years are below market value. So that's a history we look at it. I think that's kind of how that's going to play out for him. So the next situation we have here is a little bit different. The next restricted free agent, it's going to be the Cam Thomas saga, which has been building for a while. Honestly, this has been a very interesting and entertaining situation to follow because Cam Thomas is an excellent scorer. There's no debating that. I mean, you look at what he did last season. He averaged 24 points a game. He shot 50% from 2-point range, 35 from 3, 88 from the free throw line. So he clearly has a skill in the NBA that's very high level. That's not in question here. The problem for Cam is like, okay, kind of like we just talked about with Josh Giddey. How does this translate to a team that's actually ready to compete? Brooklyn's nowhere near that. So obviously in this situation, it's going to look a little bit different. But it's like, okay, once we get to a point where there's better teammates around him, the team structure is different. There are other guys that really command touches in the backcourt next to him. How is he going to fit in? Can he distribute? Can he guard? And the answer has been mostly no to this point. And I think that's why the Nets are really reluctant to offer him, the money he's looking for. Because Cam, in his eyes, is a star. Like, I think Cam has a great amount of confidence, bordering on like irrational confidence. Like, I think in his eyes, he sees himself as like, oh, I can compete with all-stars, superstars. Like, I'm that guy. And the Nets and other teams, I'm sure, are like, nah, we don't quite see you like that. So that brings him to a $6 million qualifying offer. So obviously there's pros and cons to that. It's a huge risk, but it kind of feeds into his confidence. He thinks he is great player. So that's why I think he thought that was worth the gamble there. But I mean, simple question to you, Steven. I think this is, do you think the gamble is worth it for him? Because he had other options. He could have taken something that was a very short-term deal from the Nets, but he just wanted to just go ahead and take this, move on to another team, possibly in the offseason, just kind of rid his hands of this. But, in your opinion, was it worth it for him to take the qualifying offer? Because we've seen with Nerlens Noel in the past, if you kind of mess this up, you're really sacrificing a lot of money on long term. So, how do you feel about that, how that might play out for him?
So I'm trying to pull up the number. I know after Camp took the qualifying offer, Shams Charania reported, I think in an ESPN article, what was Cam's offer? I think it was 2 years. Was it 30 million? I think it was that he turned down in order to take the qualifying offer. So if you're thinking about that logistically, is he going to make $24 million on his next deal? Like, next year alone after this upcoming season in order to equate that 30 million. So to answer that question, probably not. But what I will say is this year was a year where there just wasn't a bunch of cap space out there. Next year, I do believe right now there are 10 teams, I want to say, that are going to have substantial cap space. So I think from that perspective, like, oh, that makes sense. If he wants to secure a long-term deal, he has a better shot doing it next year, especially like this Nets team. And when was the last time you looked at the Nets roster?
I was actually looking at it right before we jumped on this pod. So
it's
mismatch
rough.
of guys. Yeah. Random names.
So, like, it's conceivable to say, like, Cam Thomas might average 27, 28 points a game. Like, if they give him that type of freedom, of course.
Exactly.
I do know there was the whole Twitter debacle where, you know, he got, for lack of a better term, a little bit of Twitter fingers and was tweeting about, you know, Sean Marks and how things played out. I'm like, you probably shouldn't be tweeting negative things about the GM that owns your restricted free agency rates. That's not good business for anybody. Exactly. But I think at that point, he kind of knew he was going to take the qualifying offer. But with that said, I understand it from a logistics standpoint of, oh, there's 10 teams with cap space next year. But at the same time, if I was the agent, I would advise him to take the 2 for 30 and then figured it just he would have been on a contract 1 extra year, which is another year he probably would be on a pretty bad Nets team, being able to put up substantial numbers and then get the year the following year. But
yeah, I think time is going to tell if he made the right decision. I think it's almost impossible to make a call right now, just because like we don't know how next season's going to go. We don't know if he's going to stay healthy, if he's going to have the freedom he's looking for. Because that's the other thing. It's like you're under team control for another season. So with this roster, I mean, it's a lot of mismatched names, but there's a lot of young guys behind him coming up. I mean, the Nets had like 4 draft picks in this previous draft, 2025. That are going to be on this roster looking for minutes. So I don't think it's like, oh, you're just automatically, he's being paid $6 million. It's not like he's $30 million and he's automatically going to get minutes. He's at $6 million. You know, there's several players, by my count, 6, I want to say it's 6 other players making more money than him. One of them is a rookie. Igor Demon is making more money than him this coming season, $6.8 million. And then obviously Michael Porter is here. Nick Claxton has a new deal. Terrence Mann. So, I mean, there's other names in there that are automatically going to get priority. And I'm not saying Cam's not going to get minutes, but, you know, if he doesn't get the 30-plus minutes a game or, you know, he has an injury, it slows him down, he has a slow start. Like, there's a lot of things that can impact how the season goes for him. So, I mean, there's a lot riding on this. But the plus side is this 1-year deal gives him a built-in no-trade clause. And then, like you said, next year, 10 teams, free cap space. So it gives them freedom in that respect. But this is interesting here. Cam Thomas is only the 5th former first-round pick to sign a qualifying offer since 2017. So like we talked about before the pod, I mean, this is a rare scenario. I don't see this happen, especially when it comes to guys like Cam Thomas that are, you know, pretty high profile. I think for some good reasons, some bad reasons. But we'll see. We'll see. I really can't wait until he's got his next deal, hopefully with another team, just so we can see like if these numbers are like the empty stats that we hear so much about, empty calories, or if it's like he can really do this anywhere. That's what I really want to see. So this season is going to be, I think, more of the same. I think he's going to be over 20 easy on pretty good efficiency. I just want to see what the Nets do from here. Like, do they say, okay, you're our guy, you know, we'll pay you whatever, or, you know, it goes somewhere else? You know, I think that's the big question we're going to have to wait and see answered. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season. I can't wait to see if there's going to be beef with him and the coach, or, you know, he's just going to be out of his mind doing crazy stuff like Jordan Poole the first year with Washington, stuff like that, like unhinged. Like I just can't wait to see how that goes. That Nets team is very interesting for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. I mean, again, I would have taken a 2 for 30 because I just think it's next year he would have been able to do it. But at the same time, like, yes, not only did he bet on himself, but maybe he's just tired of being on a losing team. Like, that's conceivable as well. So.
Oh, yeah. I think it's both. Honestly, I think it's both. Absolutely. So now we're going to get into the 2 players here that are currently still restricted free agents as of this recording. Of course, you know, we'll probably record this and then tomorrow morning it's like, oh, one of these guys signs a qualifying offer or something. But as of right now, they are still restricted free agents. The first one of which is going to be Quentin Grimes, who started with Dallas last season. You know, I think he played okay. He was pretty solid for them. gets traded midseason to Philadelphia, goes off 40-point games, 30-point games. The usage rate spikes. His usage rate went from 18.5% with Dallas per basketball reference to 27% with Philly. And of course, some of that was injuries. Paul George was out. Embiid was out. VJ Edgecombe wasn't there yet. And Jared McCain had a season-ending injury, I think, to his meniscus. So for a lot of reasons, he got extra run, and he made the most of it. He played as well as he could have played. So I think he's looking at it. He's like, so what are you guys going to do? Like, I played out my mind. What do I get? And Philly is in a weird situation because I think by my math, if we combine the salaries of Paul George and Joel Embiid, isn't that 70% of the cap with two players? You got two guys on a supermax deal, 35%, 70%, two players. You got Maxey. You factored him in. Those three guys alone are almost the entire cap. Then you got to fill in the roster behind them. You already have VJ Edgecombe. You already have Jared McCain, who had a great season before he went down. They're loaded at guard. They have a lot of guards right now. So they look at it and they're like, okay, we're capped out. We're luxury tax territory. We're pushed up against aprons. We have a bunch of guards already. So I think Quentin Grimes, I think if it were a different situation, maybe the team had more money to play with, if they didn't have so many guards, I think he would have already been signed. But this situation, there's so much going against him. I think that's why he's still restricted free agent, even though he's worth a good amount of money. Like we're talking, starting two guard in this league, maybe in the same territory as, or maybe not the same, but I would think pretty close to Giddey in terms of the money he can get per season. Being a great 3-and-D guard, he's shown he can operate on ball more. So, I mean, fair for him to want more money. I just think Philly is just not a good place for him right now, just with all the different players they have, and it's unfortunate. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
I am a little surprised, Aaron, that Utah has money still that they could offer Grimes like a 2 for $34 million, 3 for what would that be, 51? Like that's the team I'm surprised that hasn't, sort of ponied up to see, okay, let's make Philly uncomfortable and match it. Especially because Danny Ainge has done that with the Sixers before when they did it with B-ball Paul Reed a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So, and like Utah, after they made, that John Collins deal, they had the cap space, they could do it. So that's the one I'm surprised hasn't. For Grimes in the qualifying offer, if I was his agent, I wouldn't advise him to take the qualifying. I mean, obviously it's going to have to ease off somehow, but playing on a 1-year qualifying offer on a team that's that loaded with guard, with Tyrese Maxey and Jared McCain and now VJ Edgecombe and Kelly Oubre, Paul George is still in the wing. Like, there's just, I don't know how much Grimes is going to be able to play this year where I don't think it'd be advantageous for him. Cam Thomas, obviously, of course, the 1-year qualifying offer, he's going to get buckets, average 25 a game, and then hit unrestricted free agency. Mm-hmm. Grimes is, in a little bit of a time crunch. But at the same time, we aren't that far removed. What was it? The trade deadline, was it in 2023? When Grimes was traded from the Knicks to Detroit, everyone was saying, I remember specifically on the Game Theory podcast, Sam Vecini and Grace Hyman were saying, Quentin Grimes is the most valuable trade chip that was traded at this year's deadline that year. So we're not that far removed from that. Like, Quentin Grimes is still a very good basketball player. He should probably be making $20+ million a year. I don't think he's going to, because I don't think Sixers going to sign him to that. So unless Utah is again going to be the team to pony up, but this is one where I just have no idea how it resolves itself. Like I know you wanted me to come on this podcast to give insight, but like this is one just I don't know. Like, I know what he's worth. I know what he should get, but just on the Sixers team, let me see. I want to pull up the Sixers cap sheet real quick. How far away are they from the second apron? Because I know they're trying. There's been reports they've been trying to salary dump either Andre Drummond or Kelly Oubre Jr. to get more flexibility under. Let's see. So they are 21.6 away from the second apron, but only 9.8 away from the first apron, and they're basically right at the tax line. So anything in like, what would that be? 8 figures for Grimes at $10 million or more is going to put you in the first apron, assuming you don't do anything else. Of course,
Right.
obviously, if they're able to move Drummond or Oubre or whoever it is, then that changes things.
Mhm.
But that's just one I think they almost have to trade Drummond or Oubre. I
Yeah.
want to say Drummond would be the odd man out, but Oubre with all those guards and making the extra $3.2 million over Drummond, he could very well, be the odd man out as well. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Just I'm too plugged into this. As you see, it's Sunday as we're recording this. I'm wearing my Go Birds shirt as the Eagles are about to play the Chiefs.
Mhm.
I have too much. I'm a Sixers season ticket holder. Like I have too
Okay.
much ties to the city of Philadelphia. I think
Yeah.
I'm too invested. So I really don't know how the Quinn Grimes situation plays itself out.
That's fair. That's fair. No, I mean, I think it's totally valid to just not be sure how this is going to go. I don't think that's a bad take at all, by you to have that, because I'm in the same boat. I've been thinking about it the past few days, really past few weeks, since all this news came out that they're trying to come to a deal. And I'm just like, man, it's like you said, it's like he wants a certain amount of money. I think it's justified. We know what he's worth, what he should get. But the Sixers, their hands are almost kind of tied because they don't want to be deep into the apron. They don't want to be over the first. That's the thing. I think the CBA, I think that's kind of creating chaos in all these
Yeah.
situations, is creating the restricted free agent madness. In the past, even maybe a year or two ago, I think maybe everyone except Kuminga would have deals, no problem.
Yeah.
But when it comes to the apron, like all these teams are so adverse to the apron. Like they just want to get out of it by any means possible. They don't want those restrictions. They want flexibility into the season. If they want to get a buyout player, if they want to make certain moves, they don't want to have their hands tied completely. So they're looking at it and they're like, nah, you are worth that money, but I don't know if it's worth it to pay you and be that far into the tax. So I think we also have to think about the multipliers of the apron, because that's something else that's changed in the new CBA. I know the brackets are different.
Yeah.
So if you're a little bit over the tax, the penalties are less. But as you go farther over, there are more heavy penalties than in the past. We're talking $3.50, $4, on the dollar that you're paying in tax. So I think when you factor that in, that's why teams are so hesitant to sign these guys, even though it would make sense. So maybe they could come to some kind of middle ground where it's like, okay, we give you a little bit less for like a year or two. You could hit free agency again. Maybe when things are a little bit different. Maybe they trade him. Because honestly, I think like at some point they're gonna have to trade one of these guys. I don't think you can keep VJ and Grimes and Tyrese and McCain. Like it just kind of, I think they step on each other's toes a little bit. And you don't want any of their development to be stunted. I mean, Maxi's already the player we know he's going to be. But the other three are still trying to find their way, and they're going to try to, become the player they could be. I mean, VJ was number 3 pick. You don't want to sideline him. McCain was putting up, 15 plus points as a rookie. You don't want to sideline him. Grimes was putting up 40-point games. You don't want him to be on the sideline. So it's difficult, man. It's really hard for all those guys. So we'll see what happens with Grimes, but I think maybe they trade one of those guys. And it's also tough with those players because I think Drummond is the easier guy to say, like, we could trade him away, but they need big men. Embiid's going to be hurt. They need guys behind Embiid. But then Kelly Oubre is a great scorer. They're not exactly full on wings either because Paul George is going to be hurt. So it's like, dude, they have so much going against them. I'm glad I'm not in that organization. And I'm sorry you got to deal with this as a fan. It's just tough all around.
What I will say, what's Quinn Grimes' qualifying offer? 8.7 mil, I believe.
12.9.
Ooh, 12.9 makes it sharper. I just Googled something and AI popped up 8.7. So that I didn't know the number. I was just like, at 8.7, it would have been okay. You could still avoid the first apron if he just takes it. 12.9, you're in the first apron either way, so by a couple million. So that's where it definitely gets tricky. That's probably why they're looking to offload a Drummond or Kelly Oubre in order to make this, tenable. One final point I'll say, like how we talked about Cam Thomas, being potentially empty stats on a bad team. That's not the situation with Quentin Grimes. Quentin Grimes, everywhere he's gone, he wasn't that great in Dallas just because it was minutes time crunch, I think. But like when he was on the and same thing with the Pistons, he got hurt. But like when he was with the Knicks a couple years ago, he was really good. Like this is not a. I know he put up good stats on a bad team after the trade deadline, but I don't think this is a good stats bad team situation. If that makes sense.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree because he's proven himself in other situations, winning situations. And I mean, if you could play for a team that has a head coach in Tom Thibodeau, and you can have the trust, his trust to be on the
Yeah.
court for extended minutes, you're not an empty calories player. You're an impact player that could really get a team to, and that's the thing for the Sixers. I mean, I think having Quentin Grimes for the long term would be great for them because I think he's a winning player, but they're just so loaded, man. It's just going to be hard for him to kind of find a place there. So
There's never been a bad team that's been so loaded I've ever seen.
yeah, it really is
Like,
insane.
I'm saying in terms of they have like some of the most depth in the NBA, the Sixers, but like they might win 40 games at best. Like we don't know. It's going to depend how healthy Embiid is and how good Paul George is. But like it's just funny we're talking about the Sixers have this loaded team with depth. Mm-hmm. But again, like they might just be a playing team in a crappy East. Like we don't know.
I think they will be. I have no trust in Embiid or Paul George.
Yeah.
I think they're going to fall apart. Paul George is already dealing with some kind of injury, so I'm just like, I have no faith. I think those guys are going to break down. So unfortunate. So, hate to say it, but it is what it is.
It's going to come down to Embiid. With that said,
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So one last team here, Steven, end this off. We want to discuss the Jonathan Kuminga situation, and I know all you guys have been waiting for this one. This is the one with the most drama. This is the one where I think I think it's also another tricky situation that's kind of hard to predict because for Kuminga, he's had great moments. We know that he's very talented, very athletic. He can impact the game on both ends of the floor. That's all well and good. 22-year-old forward. I think he got a 2-year deal offered by the Warriors, but had a second-year team option on it. I think that's what kind of caused him to kind of scoff and say, I don't want that. Because I think Kuminga's running in the same situation that we're seeing with Cam Thomas. It's like, it's not just about the money. It's about the situation. It's about the team overall. And I think he's been on this Warriors team now, for several years. And he's like, I'm not going to grow as a player here. Steve Kerr doesn't trust me. The team doesn't prioritize my development because they're trying to win a championship, one more championship while they have Curry and Draymond. They have different priorities from me. I don't want to be here anymore. So if you're going to give me a team option and you have the power to keep me here another year after next year, I don't want that. So I think that's what created this situation here. I wouldn't be surprised if he also takes the qualifying offer. It looks like it's 7.9 for his situation. So it's a little bit more than Cam Thomas. But, I mean, with this Warriors team now, especially that they have Jimmy Butler, they're still firmly in win now mode. They have Draymond. It's tough. I mean, if he takes it, like, there's more risk here than with Cam Thomas. Same situation as Quentin Grimes. There's a lot of guys ahead of him that are going to get minutes. Steve Kerr could pull Kuminga's minutes. He could be at 20 in the 20s, low 20s easily. So, I mean, there've been rumors, there's teams that want him for sure. I know Phoenix is trying to work something out for him earlier in the offseason. Recently, I saw something about the Bulls wanting him. I don't know if that's true. I don't know where that came from, but I think they're also looking at him. So I think there's multiple teams out there that would love to have Kuminga, but he's just kind of stuck right now. The Warriors have money to offer him, but he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to take it. So it's a standoff right now, from what I can tell. I think Kuminga is a great player. I think he just ended up in a bad spot. And for a young player that's raw like him, if you end up in the wrong team, I think it really slows down your development because we know what he can do. But, man, the Warriors are just all in for winning right now. There's that time where they had Wiseman and Kuminga and Poole, but they were still trying to win. So I think they didn't really handle that situation the best, I think. And I think now it's like, okay, you have Kuminga, great asset, but he's just not where he could be just because the team doesn't really, don't really trust him. At least Kerr doesn't trust him. So that's where the problem comes in. So with this situation, do you think it's wise for him to take the qualifying offer? I think it's a huge risk. I wouldn't advise it, but I'm sure he wants to because he just wants to get out of there. But what should Kuminga be looking for at this point in time? What does she prioritize as we get close to training camp here.
What I'm very surprised by is that Golden State, there's been reports that Sacramento was making those offers involving, what was it, Malik Monk, Dario Saric, and Devin Carter for Jonathan Kuminga.
Yep.
And in a sign-in trade, and they wanted a first-round pick. Like, that a first-round pick as well? Like, that baffles me that Golden State hasn't taken that offer from Sacramento. I think Malik Monk is very playable at $18 million. I know he's a little repetitive with what Golden State has, but like you could always flip him later. And Golden State's a team that does stuff that has been wanting to do that. We saw that when they got D'Angelo Russell in the sign and trade when Kevin Durant went to Brooklyn. They said, okay, we'll flip him later. And they did that. So I don't know why they're so adverse to taking Wiggins. I mean, yeah, Dario Saric, $5 million. Like he's basically been unplayable the last couple of years. So whatever, that's the downside to the deal. And then Devin Carter was a lottery pick last year who was hurt last year. So, like, I don't really see why, like, if this Kuminga situation isn't playing itself out the way they expected, like, I don't know why that isn't a deal. If I was going to say it's GM and Sacramento offer that, I would have jumped on it.
I think I would have too.
Yeah, and Kuminga would be making what, at least $25-ish million a year with that deal, because Monk makes 18, Sarge makes 5 or 6, and then Carter makes a couple mil. So, yeah, I mean, they're going to make Kuminga's going to get paid with that deal. I know Sacramento for Kuminga probably isn't the best fit at this point, given DeRozan is more of a 4 at this point.
Keegan Murray.
Keegan Murray. Who else do they have? They have is it bad? I don't even know who's on the Kings anymore. Sabonis obviously is playing the 5. But with that said, like Golden State's not the best fit for Kuminga either. So at least with Sacramento, he's getting paid. And he's getting paid long term. Like Golden State, he's not going to. This is one where I just think he's going to have to settle for the qualifying offer. But again, that's scary territory you're getting in with Kuminga.
Yeah.
If you're him or his agent or anybody on his team.
It's very scary because we see in the past, I mean, he's had some times where he barely plays at all.
Yeah.
Like when he's really just kind of in the doghouse with Kerr. So I think that's what creates the situation where it's like, at first glance, like, yeah, it makes sense for him to take that. But you don't want to have a stretch of games where like you're getting DMPs or you're playing like 15 to 20. You're not really a factor. That can really dissuade some teams from wanting him in free agency because it doesn't make any sense for you to get to free agency next year when teams have cap space. If you had an off year and some teams aren't interested or teams are not offering you as much money, like that's also a possibility. So it could still work out for him. He could still maybe get an offer from a team and be making 15 to 20. I don't think I would offer him maybe much over 20 just because like he's not as proven as some of the other guys. Like he's had moments, he's had flashes, but I think his appeal comes from more of like the possibility of what he could do. Instead of like, oh, we've seen him do this already. Like with Giddey and Cam Thomas, like he's done it. Quentin Grimes, they've done it. Kuminga hasn't done it over an extended period. Like I think maybe 20 games he's had a great stretch before, but we haven't seen him do it over a solid period of time. And like when the team is winning a lot, like when they're in the deep in the playoffs or something like that, we haven't really seen that. So I would probably cap at low 20s. As far as I'd go for him. 20 to 22, I think is fair. And then, we'll see, but we'll see if a team is willing to kind of just really like spin the bag on him. I feel like if he has a decent season, a few teams will be interested at that number. 3 to 4 years, if you're looking to get another young, talented player and there's somebody in the backcourt that can, utilize him well. I think he'd be best in a system like a Chicago, like a Indiana that are fast pace, high tempo, high scoring, less of a half court team. I think if he's somewhere there, he could really have some great moments and boost his value even more. But there's still a lot of question marks with Kuminga. Is the shooting ever going to come around? Is he going to be able to lock in for a whole season? Things like that. But if he can do that, maybe for one more year here with the Warriors, I think he's going to set himself up really well. But he has to get at least he needs to break into the mid-20s in terms of minutes per game to really have a chance. And not even necessarily like score a bunch of points, but like be a great defender, be a great team player, start to knock down more open shots. If he can do things like that, he'll be set up really well for next season. He'll get some great money. But
for what it's worth, Kuminga has draft pedigree on his side, and like guys like that, they just get opportunities.
that's true.
Like as you said, Aaron, because of the potential of what he could be. If I'm Kuminga, like, and let's say I take the qualifying offer and Golden State this year, next year I'm trying to push myself to like Miami. Miami's very good at player development. They're going to have minutes for him. Like that's the situation that if I'm Kuminga, I'd want to see myself in.
For sure.
Yeah.
I like that you brought up Miami. It's giving me something to think about. Depending on what happens with Wiggins, they talked about trading him, and I don't think he has that many years left on this deal. So I mean, yeah, that'd be cool. I'd love to see that. Yeah. I think he would flourish in that system, in the front court there. So yeah, this Kuminga situation, I think it's going to get drawn out all the way to close to when the season's starting. So they're going to keep going back and forth, and hey, here comes a qualifying offer, 7.9, and the pressure is going to be on him, and then obviously Cam Thomas. The pressure is on. The ultimate high risk, high reward deal. That's what I said on Twitter a couple weeks ago. If it works out, you're golden. If it doesn't, you're either stunted, best case scenario, or your whole career is kind of derailed, worst case scenario. So it's going to be tough. I mean, the Warriors want to win, but if Kuminga isn't a winning player, they're not going to play him. So, I mean, that's kind of how it goes right now. That's like as simple as I can make it. But any final comments about any of these restricted free agents, or I guess the situation in general as, this thing draws on into like the second or third month, wherever we're at now?
No, I don't think so. I think I'm interested to see what does happen with Grimes and Kuminga. I think it just might end up being both of them taking the qualifying offer at this point. Even if, that's not the most wise decision. Like, it's just these teams' hands are a little bit tied. Golden State only, I think, has 9 guys on the roster right now for what it's worth. Like, they can't even fill out their roster. I know there's reports of Al Horford wanting to go there, but again, they need to resolve the Kuminga situation before they fill out the remaining of those guys. Like, they lost out on Malcolm Brogdon. It was reported Malcolm Brogdon was going to go to Golden State, and he got tired of waiting. And now he's on the Knicks. So it'll be interesting to see, how especially the Warriors fill out the remainder. The Sixers already have 13 guys on the roster. We already talked about their depth. But Golden State specifically, I want to see how they fill out the rest of the team after, the Kuminga thing resolves. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another good point. I mean, they're very thin right now. They're like the only team in the NBA that's done zero this offseason. Like, just been totally quiet because, like, they really can't. It's like Kuminga's the elephant in the room. They have to address it. Yeah. But I think they've missed out on free agents like Brogdon, which is going to hurt their depth. They've maybe missed out on some trades they could have made with the Sacramento or somebody like that. So for this next season, I'm not very high on them. I just think that at this point, they're guaranteed to have a thin roster.
Yeah.
They're going to put a lot on Jimmy and a lot on Curry, a lot on Green and Buddy Hield. And, we know those guys are getting older. So, I mean, they could break down, and then you're really just kind of screwed at that point. So it's unfortunate for the Warriors, but, that's how it goes sometimes in negotiations. And hopefully next year it's a little bit more straightforward with teams having more cap space, but we'll have to wait and see because those apron rules and the tax brackets, that's not going to change anytime soon. It's still going to scare teams from spending too much money. So they're going to balance all that out ultimately. But I think that's all I have today, Steven. Thanks again for joining the pod. Great time as always. Great to catch up with you, talk about these players. Something to think about for the next few weeks until we get to the regular season. But, we'll see how it goes. Do you want to shout out anything specific here to the listeners before I let you go?
Yeah, just go follow Walk at the Center Hub. As Aaron alluded to when we got started, we're doing a college basketball, literally a season preview magazine, previewing all 365 Division I teams. We've interviewed already over 100 Division I coaches, exclusive interviews that you'll find in that magazine. So even if you're not a huge college basketball fan, I'm obviously going to recommend it because it's going to be invaluable information that even if you're like an NBA draft guy just trying to learn about some of these guys, or whatever it may be. I mean, if you want to learn about college basketball, this is the best resource that is going to be out of the market for you to be able to learn that we make it digestible. So you could find that link on the Center Hub's Twitter page. We have it as a pin tweet. That's at the Center Hub _BB. Go purchase that. It's only $12 pre-order. It'll be out October 13th. Otherwise, yeah, you guys can follow me on Twitter at the _NBAGEL. That's NBAGELL. And Aaron, I appreciate not only you, but all the guys at No Trade Clause, all the guys at SBC, and I appreciate you having me on.
Anytime, Steven. Anytime, man. You're always welcome over here on the pod. Yeah, check out Steven's stuff. Those guys over there, they're doing a lot of great things. He told you about the college basketball guide, so go check that out. I think it's going to be well worth your time because these guys do their research, and I highly recommend check out anything they have to offer. Over here at NTC, we're in transition. We have our cap sheets being worked on right now. They're under construction along with draft capital, but we hope to have those done for you guys, back up and running this week. So keep an eye out for that as we kind of transition some things, start to change some things as we get to next season. But we will have that done here for you very shortly. But in the meantime, go check out some of our other pods. Those are still up on our site, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. They're all there for you guys to listen. If you're interested, notradeclause.com. Go check us out. So thanks, everybody, for your time. Thanks for checking out this episode. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back real soon with more coverage of the NBA over here at No Trade Clause. We'll see you then, guys. Take care.